¿Qué tal amigos? ¿Cómo están? Bienvenidos una vez más. El día de hoy tenemos un invitado especial, a Kenny Lee, que tuvimos hace 9 meses y el proyecto ha evolucionado un montón de Manta Network, entonces vale la pena saludarlo. Welcome everyone. Welcome Kenny. Today we're going to talk with Kenny Lee, the founder, co-founder and leader of Manta Network. It's been evolving a lot. We last time talked about 9 months ago. So I'm really
No way.
hyped to talk to you about the evolution of the project because I've seen a lot of stuff. So, first of all, welcome. How are you doing today? Where are you at?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm surprised it's been 9 months. It doesn't feel like 9 months. It feels like we talked about, like a month or so ago. I can't believe it's so long. Wow.
Yeah. It's been time goes fast. Time goes fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Happy to, answer any questions and always happy to be here. Always happy to chat, Mateo. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Amazing. Amazing. I appreciate the time for sure. So, first of all, I wanted to maybe go back to a pretty basic question, but I think this has evolved over time, like any good project should be adapting to the environment. So, what would you say is Manta Network at this point in time?
Yeah, so I'd say Manta Network, we have, evolved in terms of what our focus is for the end user, but at the end of the day, it's always been around zero knowledge. And so we are building an ecosystem for zero knowledge applications. And this is kind of what we're doing over on the Polkadot side with the L1, which we refer to as Manta Atlantic, and then also with the new L2, which we refer to as Manta Pacific.
Okay. Can we maybe deep dive into those? Like, well, the original idea of Manta, I think it was like a payment system, right? The main thing would be Manta Pay, but now it has evolved to this layer two and dApp ecosystem. So, what can you tell us about this decision, this approach to expand the capabilities of your zero knowledge technology that you have been building?
Yeah, so you're right. When we first started, it was specifically focused on payments. But what we started realizing was that, especially with the world today, with the user base today in Web3, right? There's a limitation on exactly what people can do in Web3. And when I say limitation, right, the evidence here is when you look at on-chain activity, right, on Polkadot, it's about like 3,000 to 5,000 people on transacting on Polkadot with wallet addresses on a daily basis. When you look at Ethereum, it's around like 300,000 daily active users. But, like regardless of which ecosystem you look at in Web3, what you see is that there's a very limited amount of users, right? When you compare this to like any traditional application, like a Duolingo, that one app alone has 10 million daily active users, right? And so it blows the entire Web3 space out of the water. And so the question here is like, why doesn't Web3 really have those users? And so, of course, there's a lot of issues with that, a lot of reasons why that's the way it is. But I think one of the core reasons is also because the user safety, the on-chain privacy is really not there. And it's not just about transacting, but about interactions with all sorts of different applications. And so, taking that thesis with all the ZK sort of side that we've already built out with Manta Network, we decided if no one else is going to tackle this issue, then, it's something that we definitely want to take a stab at. And so that's kind of how a lot of our vision evolved or grew from, that initial just simple payment structure. And so after that, you saw the ZK SBTs on Manta Atlantic launching, and that was for on-chain private identity. And I think we saw a lot of great user base there. There was about like 100,000 different unique users that have been KYC'd through the ZK SBTs. And then 200 plus, almost around 300,000 users now in total. And so like that was a great first stab at a specific application on Atlantic. But what we realized is, we've got to broaden this scope because we can't be the ones building all the applications, right? Like we need to make it as simple as possible for developers to be able to build these sort of privacy enhanced better user experience applications. And so that's why we also launched Manta Pacific, which allows developers to actually leverage our ZK circuits without having to do anything except program in Solidity. So it makes it super simple for anyone to deploy a ZK application.
So how does this modular layer 2 work? Does it live on top of Ethereum, or how does it work with and it also uses as well Celestia, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it lives on top of Ethereum, and the modularity on our ZK side. So, you know, there's two levels of modularity here. One is the modularity on our ZK side, and then one is the modularity on Celestia side, where we use the data availability specifically to lower gas costs for the end user. But for the ZK side, the modularity comes in because what we've done is we are building out the ZK circuits that allow developers to do whatever they want to do. And so what we do is we build these circuits and compile them as smart contracts. This is the first version of Pacific, at least. And how that works essentially is now a developer, if you use Solidity, you're familiar with Solidity, but you don't know how to use, or you're not familiar with Rust. You're not familiar with cryptography or zero knowledge or these concepts, and you don't want to spend a whole month trying to learn everything. You don't have to anymore. We've already compiled the circuits as smart contracts for you. And so you can just call whatever circuits you want to enable those features in your smart contract without doing anything else. So you can just fully write in Solidity. And so, for example, one of the first circuits that we have right now, one of our universal circuits, is called ZK Shuffle. And ZK Shuffle, what it does is it allows you to do on-chain private shuffling of any card deck. And so you can imagine now, like, you can build on-chain poker, you can build on-chain blackjack, you can build on-chain card games, on-chain board games, right? Because it's a really big issue, right? Like there hasn't really been any sort of fully on-chain poker before. There's only been like poker games that use like crypto as payment or something. But to build fully on-chain poker is very tricky, because if you and I were to play on-chain poker and we both shuffle the deck, then we can't play because we both see every single card in the deck and where it is by just looking at a block explorer, right? Like it's fully transparent. Yeah. So it can't be played that way. And so what we've done is we built out ZK Shuffle as a universal circuit, and that allows you to privately shuffle and privately pass out cards to all players without having to reveal any of that information until the time comes when you have to reveal it. And so with that universal circuit, it's fully Solidity based. So anyone who can build an EVM smart contract on Ethereum, who can build it on Moonbeam, who can build it on Polygon, can just build it and add our ZK Shuffle interface into their application. And bam, now they can build an on-chain poker game. Now they can build an on-chain blackjack game. And all they've done was write in Solidity code.
Nice. So you could describe it as a zero knowledge Lego piece that you can help it to build your app, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you're building a business, you're probably not going to do accounting from scratch, right? You're not going to like write all your things in a notebook paper and then calculate your taxes by hand at the end of the day. It's just something you have to do to maintain your core business. Same with ZK. Right? ZK is not your core business. It's not your core value proposition for your users, but having ZK enabled features is something that you need to provide that value to your users. And so we're essentially providing that ZK as a service to you.
And where do these applications that use this service live? Like in Polkadot parachains, or it can be like a layer 1 app on Ethereum, or it has to be a layer 2? Like
it'll live on
the connectivity. Mainnet?
Yeah, it'll live on the L2. It'll live on Manta Pacific. And the reason is kind of going back to the modularity side for Celestia as well. And so what we've done is we're optimizing our L2 specifically to lower the gas costs as much as possible for ZK applications. And so on the data availability side, modularizing that allows us to be able to reduce a lot of those gas costs, building verification, proof verifiers into the EVM precompiles, right? That can help with lowering some of the fees. And so our environment is not just optimized for building ZK applications, but also deploying and using ZK applications.
And how does Celestia come into play with all of this?
Yeah, so Celestia allows us to fragment the data availability, because instead of data availability, at least right now, there's some proposals out on Ethereum to kind of change that. It is a major cost in terms of the gas fee. And so by being able to remove that major cost and shifting it over to Celestia, then we're able to reduce a lot of that gas cost for the end user as well. And so ultimately, right, like what this really means for us is like we're just concentrating on how we can reduce the fees as much as possible, because ZK applications are very compute intensive. They do cost a lot in terms of gas fees. And so being able to reduce that as much as possible is one of our priorities. And so having Celestia as the data availability layer for us helps us with that.
At some point in time, I read about the more transactions that are happening in the zero knowledge space, it will become cheaper. Is that how it works? Does it the more it scales, the cheaper it goes for everyone, or it doesn't work like that? How do you see the EVM limitations that we have seen? For example, with we have seen like EVMs that are cheap at the beginning, but if they would have the same traffic as Ethereum at the end, it's like the same problem with fees. So how do you see the connectivity between other layer 2s on Ethereum with Manta, and how composable are all these layer 2s with layer 1 of Ethereum? Do you believe it will be more efficient at some point?
I would hope it would be more efficient at some point, but I think like what we've seen right now is, there's like cat hair on my nose. So there's two forms of scalability, right? You've got vertical scalability, which is what each layer 2 individually is trying to accomplish. And then you have horizontal scalability, which comes in when there's tons of layer 2s scaling out. So if you have like 100 layer 2s, and you can have that bandwidth of traffic, right? Versus one layer 2, which has limited bandwidth of traffic. And so instead of going that one layer 2 route of trying to like put all the applications on one L2, it inevitably would hit some type of bottleneck. And so instead of doing that, right, scaling out on the horizontal side by building all these sort of L2 infrastructure, especially pairing it with something like Celestia for data availability, definitely can lower the cost. Yes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to your point, like the interoperability, the composability, there has to be some sort of solution there on that layer.
And what about communication with the Polkadot ecosystem? How does the communication between Manta Atlantic and Pacific work? Is there any benefits that come with this integration of you expanding into the layer 2 for the Polkadot ecosystem?
Yeah, so there are communication token bridges between like Manta Atlantic and Manta Pacific. We call it the Panama Canal, and that's kind of our project to kind of connect both ecosystems. And so between Manta Atlantic, which is really focused on identity and compliant payments right now, and Manta Pacific, which is focused on these sort of ecosystem applications, what we're doing is we're also working on bridging identity over, because, a lot of the ZK SBTs that we've been working on, they've gotten a lot of users, a lot of proofs to verify that you're real, that you've been doing on-chain activity without revealing any information. And taking that over to Manta Pacific and allowing people to verify their Web3-ness and their realness without revealing any information, to be able to unlock additional features on applications, to be able to interact with certain types of applications, right? These are all on the application layer.
Nice. Can you maybe deep dive a little bit more into the SK SBTs? I think you worked in a project with Binance, right? Using this technology. Can you explain us how it worked and what was the results?
Yeah, so it's very easy. It's very simple idea. So what it is, like there's a lot of projects in this space right now trying to figure out how do you verify someone is a real person, right? And so one of the solutions here is to move KYC on chain. And it's not like you scan your eyeballs or something and your KYC or something, but it's more like, for example, Binance's example here with Binance's account bound token. What they do is once you're KYC'd on Binance, you have the option of generating a Binance account bound token. It's BAB for short. So you can generate a BAB, and that BAB lives with you on your wallet as a soulbound token on BNB chain. But the issue here is that, it's cool that you have it all, account bound and it's on chain and everything. And now you can verify that you're Binance KYC. But the problem is there's no privacy with that. And so what ends up happening now is that you have this user base of people who have a BAB, but they don't want to necessarily connect to any other application because the BAB shows all your other assets. Because once you connect, it connects to your wallet, it shows all your NFTs, it shows all your transactions, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we did was we created the ZK SBT, which allows you to still verify that you own a specific type of SBT without revealing any information about your wallet address, your assets, et cetera, et cetera. And so as a result, right, we created the Binance's ZK BAB, which allows people, if they have a BAB, to mint that privacy preserving corresponding SBT. And so, I think there were about like 60,000 mints so far. And so these are all real verified Binance KYC users. And then we saw the same with Galaxy's Passport because they also have a KYC system. And so collectively, we have about like 100,000 KYC users on Manta Atlantic right now with those KYC IDs as well. And so, I think that's sort of the approach that the ZK SBTs are taking and seeing quite a bit of success from.
Do these users even know they're interacting with Manta when they're creating this SBTs, or?
For Manta Atlantic, yes, because you have to use our proof generators, which yeah, exactly. So you either have to use our wallet or you have to use our signer.
All right.
Sorry. So once you actually generate your ZK SBT, though, afterwards, you don't have to actually use the Manta wallet. You can verify that you own the ZK SBT without actually using the wallet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how far do you think this zero knowledge space has developed so far? How long is it for it to reach a level of maturity?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because a lot of the zero knowledge space right now, right, is very much focused on the innovation, the research, because there's so much that needs to get done. There's still so many problems that need to get solved on the fundamental level, right, on the foundation side. But at the same time, I think we're at a point now where we really can start applying some of this research into more practical applications. And so that's exactly what we want to do with Manta Pacific. We're actually, building these circuits so that they can be used by developers who just want to do Solidity programs, who don't want to actually learn cryptography, who don't want to actually, focus on the research, but just focus on the applications, the use cases, delivering it to the end users.
All right. And what about the regulatory side about zero knowledge, because it brings privacy, and I'm probably sure that the governments don't like this privacy. So how does Manta adapt to this? And what do you think will be the results? I think many of your team is in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm incorrect.
Actually, quite a bit of us are not in the US, but regardless, right? Like, I think, it's a misconception that governments, are against privacy. I think the truth is that governments are against, money laundering. They are against illicit use of funds, which I think they should be. But at the same time, right, like, it's been just correlated in the blockchain space with privacy. Because historically, right, people have used, these types of mechanisms to conduct these illicit activities. But it doesn't mean that governments, don't want privacy. And in fact, if you think about it, right, like, a government's role here is to preserve its, economy, preserve its country, protect its citizens. And without any form of on-chain privacy, all of a sudden, your citizens are now, can be surveilled and monitored and exploited by enemies of state, right? And so having some form of this on-chain privacy is important. It's just a question of how. And so that's exactly why we also went to the route of the ZK-SBTs, especially for on-chain KYC, because now you're able to prove that someone is a good actor without having to reveal any information about them and let them do what they need to do in the space. And so I think like there is, that's one step towards, I think, the right solution. Of course, it's not the perfect solution. I think there's more ways of doing this and continuing to expound on it. But I do think like, we are headed in the right direction with on-chain privacy, and there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And I think like right now, right, like a lot of the ZK projects in this space, we're all thinking about it in the right ways.
How does this would work? Like, let's say governments would have like a decryptment key, so they could verify if they wanted to, but there's privacy between users and the public in general. That's how you see the future working?
Oh, not on the infrastructure level. Like if an application, if you're building an app and that's what you want, right? Like if you want to give the US government your key or the Russian government your key, right? Like that's decided on an application level. I think what we'll see is a lot of spectrums of this. But I think on the, we can fragment the ecosystem into the infrastructure, the application, and the users, right? And so the users using that on-chain KYC through like ZK-SBTs are able to prove that they're good actors. And that proof of good actor can allow them to access certain types of applications. Maybe I'm building an application that I don't want unknown people interacting with it, right? I want to service enterprise. I want to serve people who have certain attributes. And so on the application level, right, me as an application, I can decide, okay, what types of users do I want? Do I really want to do the shady business? Do I really not, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the infrastructure level, right, I think the responsibility here is to build out these technologies, the tools, in order to enable these types of use cases. But on the infrastructure level, right, like I don't know if that's where, these types of keys are supposed to sit, because now the question is like, who do you give them to? Do you give them to the US and Russia, right? Like, because one of these people are not going to be happy that you're giving it to the other. And so, like I do think it's like a responsibility on the application layer to decide.
Of course. What do you say? What would you say are the best circuits that Manta offers, or what are the best use cases for zero knowledge besides like privacy? Like in which ways they could benefit from the privacy it provides?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been kind of talking with a few different companies about is on-chain payroll, right? Because if you're a crypto company, whether you're large or small, you're probably paying a lot of people in crypto, stable coins, right? Or your own native token as part of like the compensation package or something. And so as part of that, right, like you want to be able to pay everyone, but you may not necessarily want every payment to be fully transparent. And that's exactly what we're hearing. And so a use case such as compliant on-chain payroll systems, right? That's definitely something that's very interesting. Another one is on the gaming side that I just described with like ZK Shuffle, right? Like ZK-enabled features are not just about, user privacy for transactions, but also privatizing states of the game, privatizing states in general. And so that's like, you can prove something without having to reveal it, but without having to reveal it, you can still both agree on what it is, or that it's true and verified. And so I think like that is something that is going to be, very important as well, right? Like, for example, in the future, if you have signed contracts with other companies, you may not want to reveal all the contents of the contracts, but you want to prove that these are signed contracts so you can prove your legitimacy, right? Like these types of activities. And then the third is really on identity. Being able to prove that you are who you say you are, that you've done what you said you've done, without having to just give a wallet address, right? I can show you that I am a recipient of the Arbitrum airdrop without having to show you my wallet and show you how much I got. I can just prove it to you on chain using a zero knowledge proof.
Nice. What are some, can you maybe highlighted some applications of the Manta Pacific ecosystem. I saw there's like already some things that that are on the testnet, right?
Yeah. So right now we have ZK Hold'em that just they were one of our first applications that have launched, and they are doing on-chain Texas Hold'em using a modified version of our ZK Shuffle contract. And so you can actually play a fully on-chain poker game with your friends on ZK Hold'em on Manta testnet today. And then we have a project called Entropy, which does virtual rollups, and they settle to the Manta L2 on testnet. And then we have another project called ZK-Me, which is verifies on-chain private identity and allows you to use those verification for different activities and different tools. And yeah, I mean, like our ecosystem is just starting to launch. And so these are the ones that we have online today. I think we have about 20 projects in queue and in development as well around DeFi, identity, GameFi, social. So yeah, I mean, in a month from now, I'm really hoping that we've got a really robust test net to get ready for a launch to mainnet.
Amazing. When can we expect mainnet? Is there any clues that you can give us, or just soon?
I think like we're trying our best to move as quickly as possible. That's what I can say. Yeah,
that's the right answer, I think. You recently P0x Labs raised 25 million. What can you tell us about this? Maybe you can explain how is it involved with Manta Network?
Yeah, so P0x Labs, right, is like the team behind the deployment of Manta Network on Atlantic and Pacific, right? That includes myself, that includes, all the other co-founders, as well as all the other team members within the that people interact with basically on a day-to-day basis. And so, having that investment is there's two things that are, I think, positive signals, or actually three things. One is a lot of the investors that came into the P0x Labs raise were also, long-term investors, right? So these are people that have been with us since the beginning: Polychain, Coin Fund, Parify, et cetera, et cetera. And so these are people that have, worked with us in the past. They really like working with us, and they want to continue working with us, and they continue to believe in what we're doing, which I think is a really good sign. The second thing is, we have new investors who are also coming in, who can also help us with expanding. So one of our leads this round was also Qiming, which is one of the largest venture firms in China for both Web 2 and Web 3, and they have a long track record, long history of helping companies really expand and grow in China. And so, having that Asia presence is something we can definitely focus on, which I think is also very good. Sorry, there's so much cat hair.
No worries.
Where we're in the middle of moving, and so
okay.
Like this place is a mess, and cat hair is just flying everywhere. And then the third thing is what was the third thing? Sorry, I lost track of what I was thinking about. So we've got and the third thing is that, because it is an investment in P0x, right? Like it's a signal that, especially for Polychain and Coin Fund and our returning investors, they're not just interested in the project, but they really believe in the team, right? Like what we're doing, and they see what's going on and everything. And I think like they are very confident in like what our capabilities, which is why, they invested in P0x as well. And so I think all three are really good signs. And inspires a lot of confidence for us as well.
Awesome. That's really great. Congratulations. And that's, like you say, it's a good sign they believe in what you're building. And I think you're doing an interesting thing. I think adapting and evolving is a good thing in this space. Lastly, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Paris. Not everybody is lucky enough to go. You just went to ETHCC and all the side events. What can you tell us about? I saw you at the Modular Summit and at the Zero Knowledge Day. Is there maybe one thing you could highlight of each? Like, what's happening in the modular space, this like new upcoming idea or definition, and what's happening with all this like zero knowledge movement that's growing by the day.
Yeah, so I think, you know, at a high level, what I've seen on both sides and in ETHCC in general is that there, you know, I think when the markets first shifted and there was that, you know, sentiment of pulling back in terms of the amount of capital flowing into the markets and everything, people really started to focus on infrastructure, thinking about like L1s, L2s, and like all the foundational technology. But I think like what I got from this conference is that people are really starting to refocus and think about user acquisition and real practical application as well. And I think that's a really good sign, because the question is, you know, what are you building all this infrastructure for? Who are you building it for, right? Like if there's no one there, then like there's more L2s than there are users in the space. And so it's a good sign that people are coming back and thinking about the application layer. And so, you know, that's one of my key takeaways. In ZK Day, this was actually hosted by us as well as, you know, Cointelegraph. And, you know, we got a lot of amazing sponsors and partners and speakers. For ZK Day, I mean, we actually got more attendance at our event than ETHCC that day. And so I think like definitely people are very interested in what's going on in the ZK field. A lot of research still continuing to happen, but I think like one of the really interesting things about ZK Day this time around was our pitch day. We had early stage projects come and talk about like exactly what they're building, how they're building it, and all these early stage projects, I'd say, yeah, like they were all focused on the application side, which I think is, you know, kind of reiterating the fact that, you know, like it's not just about the research now, it's also about the user base. Same with the modular summit, right? I think modularity is, well, I guess on the modular summit, it was a little bit more infrastructure focused, because that's where modularity really shines, right? Being able to scale out the L2s in that horizontal manner. And so I do think like there's a lot of talk and focus on the future of interoperability and composability across these chains. Otherwise, you know, scaling out 1,000 L2s, if they can't communicate with each other, there's not really much of a point. And so that communication is very key. And so I'm glad people are also focusing on that.
Amazing. I think that's we appreciate that information and that point of view. And well, lastly, before I say goodbye to you, maybe you want to add something. What can we expect from Manta in the upcoming weeks, months? Maybe you have any surprise alpha you want to drop?
Yeah, so I mean, we are very much focused on onboarding a lot of our partners over on the Manta Atlantic side for the ZK SBTs, as well as the Manta Pacific side on the application layer. For anyone who is a developer who has thought about building some sort of card games, especially, we already have ZK Shuffle that's currently available. And so it would be really cool to see you try it out and, you know, give us some feedback, because it is our first universal contract, one of many. We'll have the ZK SBT and ZK NFT contracts coming out in the future as well, which allows people to mint and transfer in a privacy preserving manner NFTs, and also mint ZK or SBTs in a privacy preserving manner. And so we've got a lot of universal circuits on the Pacific side that will also be emerging. Yeah, and all of this is really to lead to mainnet, which again, you know, we're working as hard as we can as a team on getting that live. And so, you know, looking forward to hopefully getting something out to you guys as soon as possible, and we can all kind of celebrate for a bit before we continue to push.
Amazing. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for taking time of your moving
Thanks for
to talk to me. And yeah, I'm really excited just to see what's coming, what ideas you're cooking in the kitchen. So thanks for the time, and hopefully we'll talk in another time so we can measure the changes between each conversation we have.
I can't believe it's been 9 months. That's crazy. Yeah, time flies.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, Mateo. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.